went into Mario Kart World with one hope. I want to run over a toad. You can't do this.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Mario Kart World has intensely disappointed me. So instead of simulated vehicular manslaughter, I instead have to imagine it in great detail. Could the Bumblebee impale a Koopa shell? Could the Cloud9 suffocate a Shy Guy? Or could the Rob Hog kill the entire competitive scene of Smash Ultimate? All these questions you never asked and more answered on today's episode of TM Jared. Which Mario Kart World kart is the best for vehicular manslaughter? Let's start off with the standard kart. Every kart has a few distinct stats, but only two realistically matter when it comes to turning toads into road soup: speed and weight. And while the game does directly tell us how fast and heavy each kart is, it unfortunately varies a little from character to character because the formula for determining stats uses division for some reason. So I've elected to use Bowser's stats for this, as he very conveniently has the highest weight and speed stat. And with Bowser, these arbitrary lines translate to a speed of 2.6 and a weight of 2.4. And once we disavow all principles of how physics actually work, we can calculate the kinetic energy that our standard kart would be able to create by utilizing the calculation 1/2 times mass times velocity squared to give us 8.112 joules. Bowser joules. This has no relation to actual joules. All who subscribe to the PM Jared channel denounce Isaac Newton. Bowser joules are just an approximation of the amount of force each kart would be able to apply to innocent baby toads in relation to all other karts. This will be our initial number that we use to evaluate the karts, which we're going to round to the 10th place because we don't need to get that specific about the exact power. All we need is a general idea of the potential bloodshed this kart could cause. And once we have this number, we're going to augment the number based on the other factors we will be looking at, such as the material the kart is made out of. While most karts are made out of some type of metal like the standard kart, there are a few that are made out of cushier materials that could cushion Yoshi's big nose and prevent his brains from exploding onto your windshield. And we'll cover those as we come to them. There's a few other things that could affect the score that we'll cover later. But before we're done with the standard kart, I do need to point out a structural flaw with it that does make this kart a little less efficient. When you take a closer look at the kart, you might notice that the suspension is inches away from Bowser's foot. So every time you get in a collision and your body is thrashed around as the light exits a single Mother Koopa's eyes, your toes could get caught in the suspension and get hurt, making it difficult to drive the car to the next family, which will subtract 0.5 points from the total, leading to the standard kart being placed and plant at least one toadstool. Next up, let's stick to the standards with the standard bike. Bikes are generally significantly worse for maiming baby penguins, because they just generally have lower speed and weight stats in this game, as bikes are focused on acceleration and handling, leading to the standard bike starting out with only 3.2 BJs. And it doesn't get much better, because bikes only have 2 wheels. This makes the balance significantly worse, so when making sure that no one will ever be able to tell what a Shy Guy looks like under a mask, it'll be difficult to keep your balance after the collision, causing you to fall over. So I've made the decision to subtract 1 point for each wheel under 4 that a kart has, which places the standard bike in the erectile dysfunction tier. Also, the rally bike is basically the same thing, it just has a slightly higher speed stat. So when we subtract the wheels, it scores 2. But you may notice the rally bike lacks brake lights, meaning this thing is not street legal, leading to the minor chance a cop stops us before we can start turning toads inside out. So we'll subtract 0.1. So, don't hit people with motorcycles. Hit them with cars, so they die faster. Alright, now that we've established all the rules, we can do a bunch of easy ones. All these karts are very similar, all just basic 4-wheel karts, so we mostly just have the stats to go off of. And while most of them are in the 8-point range, there's a few clear losers here. The pipe frame, the baby blooper, and the biddy buggy all don't really have standard kart stats, since they're intended to be somewhere between a bike and a kart, placing them lower than most other karts. I also subtracted 0.2 from the biddy buggy and the Blastronaut 3 because the shapes are really rough for collisions. The surface of these karts doesn't have any edges, so the force doesn't get as focused in one place, giving a higher chance a Toad would survive when the damage is spread across his whole body, instead of ideally being focused on one point, which does cause more significant and fatal damage to the Toad's adorable tiny body. I also subtracted a whole point from the Blastronaut for only having 3 wheels. The rest all scored the same in BJ's though, but a couple minor things do differentiate them a bit, like the B-Dasher's lack of brake lights, and I decided for karts that are fully enclosed on all sides to add 0.1 to their score, as it gives you a bit more protection from the Toad Brigade as they attempt to stop you even if the majority of your body is still exposed. And finally, for the rally kart, I subtracted another 0.3 because the lights are in a really stupid spot. The lights seem to have been glued on over the grill of the cart. The grill of the car is the car's mouth, which is used for airflow or if your Pixar kissing. Now the grill is only partially covered here, and covering the grill won't instantly combust your car, so odds are your turning Yoshis into pavement spree will end before the car. It's still just something you really shouldn't do though, lowering the cart's placement. We can also do easy bikes real quick. These bikes are all just standard, only having the stats to go off of and the -2 for being a bike, with the W Twin Chopper being a very clear winner here, being a very big outlier for a bike. But the rest just fall to put a Koopa in its shell tier. Alright, now we can get into more specific individual karts, like the Hyper Pipe. This is another pretty crappy bike without brake lights because it's made out of pipes. But pipes in Mario Kart World are stupid. If you get anywhere near a pipe, they instantly suck you in, whether you want them to or not, meaning you could pretty effectively use this as a kidnapping mechanism. You get a Toad stuck in the suck loop, and then torture him brutally, running him into walls and drag him around Crown City, ensuring his final moments are filled with as much misery as possible. I'm not sure it's a good idea to say these words and then post them on the internet.
And make his family watch.
Which I'd say is worth some amount of extra points. But this bike gets even better, because if you look at the bottom of the bike, you'll notice 2 POW blocks. POW blocks are insanely useful items. POW blocks take everything in sight that's on the ground and instantly kill it. No ifs, ands, or buts, that Koopa taking his chain chomp for a nice walk, instantly gone. No questions asked. This is the definition of a weapon of mass Yoshi sight. This thing can turn entire towns into Boo Towns, earning this thing a handsome plus 20, 10 for each POW block. The Plush buggy does have fine stats, but it's very obviously made out of plush. While it would still hit the baby Shy Guy with the same amount of force, it would be significantly cushioned by the plush on the buggy, just making this not as effective of a weapon. And we want as few survivors from our collisions as possible, so we've got to divide the score by 4 for this card. But it does get an extra 0.1 for being protected on all sides. The Bighorn, the Rallygator, and the Bumblebee are all karts of varying BJ amounts, but they have one thing in common: very intense spikes on the karts for some reason. These would all be very effective for impaling Yoshis, creating a very satisfying donut hole in his chest. The spikes are of varying effectiveness though, so some will receive more points than others, but they still all receive rather high scores, making them all very effective at the actions we both want so badly to happen. The Rob Hog looks like it really sucks. A bike with low speed and weight, this would leave way too many surviving Toads behind. But of course, this thing is made out of a Rob, which you may initially think is just a toy designed to be used with the Nintendo Entertainment System, but that's real life, and that's not canon to video games. And I can prove that video games are not canon to real life, because whenever I make a character in a video game, they are constantly imagining what it's like to see their naked grandma be penetrated by their grandpa, who is also naked. Which means all we have to go off of is video game Rob. And while he does appear in Mario Kart DS, we don't learn much, which means it's Smash Bros time. Rob in Smash Bros, more specifically the Subspace Emissary, is fucking insane. Robs are shown to be able to shoot lasers, missiles, and just in general can hit really damn hard, and are near indestructible. And the main Rob, the one that seems to be in the bike, is even stronger. This guy can vaporize things, withstand being engulfed in flames for a couple minutes, and can fly if he's wearing a cloak. And in his most recent incarnation, Ultimate, he's just top tier and unbelievably annoying. He just spins at you and you disappear. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he caused at least one self-ending. weight, which does add to the potential kill count. And if all of this still hasn't convinced you that this cart would be very good at ripping toads limb from limb, I present to you Beefy Rob. That's worth a lot of points, for sure. The Junkyard Hog isn't that interesting. It's got good stats, but it's missing a wheel. However, that's not as bad in this case. It's got these special back wheels, which are longer and better for stabilization, so we will subtract the point for the missing wheel, but these wheels earn half a point back. It also doesn't have brake lights, though, and it has a bag. There might be a bomb in there. Who knows? The Lobster Roller actually has the best speed and weight stats, giving it an insane start on its BJ score. But what's going on with these wheels, man? It does already lose a point for missing a wheel, but 2 of the remaining wheels are just horribly manufactured. They're completely separate from the rest of the vehicle, leaving them incredibly vulnerable to have a Shy Guy's limp body hit them in the wrong way and could cause significant damage to the wheel's alignment or even completely destroy them if the Toad bloodbath is particularly forceful. And since every action has an equal and opposite reaction, the fact that this thing has the highest BJ score means it is also taking the highest BJs of any other car. So these wheels are just gonna fly off at the first available opportunity. So this just has no business being used for a spree of Koopa killing. So I gotta subtract 3 points. The cute Scoot, you just shouldn't use. I just wanted to highlight that it has 0 redeeming qualities. It's a bike that is tied for the worst speed and weight stats, already shooting it to the bottom, but I also want to point out that the booster is in the worst spot ever. It's only on one side and is attached to the bike through the tiniest pipe ever. So if any collision affects it in any way, it's just gonna snap. I would just never use this, even to run over a Grandma Yoshi.
This is worthless as a murder weapon. Do better, Nintendo!
The Toon Thumper is also really bad. It's just a bike with bad stats and another poorly placed booster. However, obviously, it's a speaker that you could play any music at all out of, and aside from blasting sick tunes while driving through a Toad school zone, doesn't seem very useful. But there is a very interesting song that exists in the Mario universe on Donkey Kong Country The Island. In the game Donkey Kong Country Returns, Donkey Kong Country The Island is under attack from the Tiki Tak tribe, a tribe of Tikis whose leaders are all designed after instruments and can play songs that hypnotize living things. And playing a song means you could probably play this same song for hypnotism out of the Toon Thumper. So, if you're willing to go to Donkey Kong Country The Island and record the probably dead Tiki Tak, figure out how the song works, and do all that without getting hypnotized or killed in one of the most dangerous places in the Mario world, then yeah, it's pretty good. The Funky Dory is the best named cart in the game. There isn't much else interesting about it. I just wanted to point that out. It loses a point for the missing wheel, I guess, and I'll give it 0.1 for the fans. Those are probably good for something. The Real Racer is really weird. It has great stats, but it's made in such a weird way. First off, it has velvet at the front, which would similarly cushion impacts. Not as much as Plush, but it should still lose some points. But in the center of the velvet is a hood ornament, which is something that could easily be used to impale a Shy Guy. It is really small though, and the velvet really just isn't what you want for collisions, so I'll add 1 for the ornament, but take away 3 for the velvet. But more importantly, why are the wheels film reels? These should not be wheels. For 1, you're ruining the film, and 2, film reels are nowhere near as strong as rubber tires. 1 collision and you just don't have tires anymore. So I've got to subtract another 5 points for that, putting him in the only Plant 1 Toadstool tier, because that's all you get. Now, your first instinct when looking at the list of carts was probably that the monster trucks would be the best for crushing Yoshis beneath your wheels. And they are very good. The 3 monster trucks all have a BJ score of 15.4, already placing them in a good position. These are just great for flattening Shy Guys. The Bowser Bruiser even has spikes pointed at the driver, which could impale you in the event of a crash. It's probably not that big a deal, though.
Based on this evidence, we can easily conclude that it is a good idea to hit people with monster trucks.
All right, the Cloud 9. It's a cloud. What does that even mean? The stats don't matter at all. How is the cart a cloud, and does that completely take away its ability to paralyze a Yoshi for the rest of its life? Well, I guess first we have to understand what a cloud even is in Mario, because it's not the same as real life. So what are they? like a million different things. They're very commonly used as platforms to stand on across the series, but they're also sometimes not platforms at all and behave like normal clouds. And sometimes they're even more solid than the usual cloud platforms, resembling a brick, but they can also be bouncy platforms, the opposite of bricks, maybe even a mode of transportation, an entire power-up unto itself. They can even be cannons or those are living people, living, breathing people made out of clouds, which maybe they all are alive because they all seem to have faces. So does that mean Cloud Mario is constantly creating life that dies moments later in Galaxy? But there's also plenty of clouds without faces. Are they still alive or are they an entirely different thing? Also, if they are alive, are Lakitu slavers? They ride in them and assert their own will over them at all times. Are they okay with this? Do they want this? And if gaseous water is alive, are other gases alive? There are living clouds that are other colors. Are they a completely different gas or am I just being racist? What does it mean when they eat? Do they grow? Is rain them shedding their body parts? Or is it piss? What are you? The Dread Sled and Stellar Sled are sleds. This isn't ideal, I'd prefer a cart, but their stats are good, and while I subtract some points for being a sled and 0.5 from the Dread Sled for being short a wheel, even if he does get part of it back for having the more sturdy type of remaining wheel, but at the end of the day, heavy metal things collide with Koopa. That's all we really want. The Bulldozer and the Mechatrike have a good BJ score to start out with, but they have something even better.
They're bombs. They're made out of a bullet bill and a Mecha Koopa, which are bombs. You know bombs? The weapons of war?
The Carpet Flyer sure is a carpet. While there's metal on the sides, most of it is whatever material carpet is considered. Cloth or some kind of cotton, maybe? What is carpet? Okay, a lot of wool. Some other synthetic components. Dead bug carcasses. Cum. I probably shouldn't do this experiment in my room. Yeah, this just sucks. This wouldn't really be useful in any way. Is that a genie lamp? What the hell? That's insane. You would just have to detach it from the car, then give it a good rubbing, and you could go directly to the star. The little Dumpy does have a really high BJ stat, so it probably seems great. But this cart is just a bigger version of a plastic toy. And plastic, unsurprisingly, is significantly worse at ending Koopa bloodlines than metal. It'll easily get bent and broken as you're doing this. It's not as bad as Plush, but it still warrants at least halving the current score. It does get an additional 0.1 for being protected on all sides, but overall it doesn't seem that powerful. But what if I were to tell you, you're gonna eat this cart someday? Plastic notoriously doesn't biodegrade when left alone. It just persists. And even when it does start to break down in any way, it doesn't become dirt like most things. It becomes a fun little speck called a microplastic. These are little pieces of plastic smaller than 5 millimeters in length that are inside you right now. The reason they're inside you is because you drink water. Now, there's a lot of ways microplastics spread, but one of the more common ways is when plastic litter of some kind ends up in water. And the water over time breaks it down, creating tons of microplastics. And then the water flow whips them around into everything and everywhere, and they end up in all parts of ocean life. And it completely infects whatever body of water it's in, which includes the pipes that funnel the water. While the filtering of the water can get rid of some of it, microplastics can be so small that they get through and then that water gets in your pipes and into your cup and into your body. What does it mean that they're in your body? Scientists don't really know. So if we dump the little Dumpy into the sea close to a pipe, it'll start spreading, especially into the pipes and into the residents of the Mushroom Kingdom. And it'll fill the toads' hearts with pieces of plastic. And they won't even know anything is happening. They don't even understand why they're afflicted with various ailments. How bad is it for them ultimately? Who knows? But it's inside them now, and the scientists won't know what to do, and it'll spread and spread. It'll be passed on to their offspring, causing unknowable defects, disabilities, and suffering, an unsolvable problem. They're inside all of you. Every last living thing will have tiny bits inside them that I put there. I put them there. They're in there right now. And you get them out. They're out there forever, and they never deep in your blood. You have to drain your blood to get them out. Drain your bloodstream. Drain it now! Ribbit Reverser is a very standard cart overall. Nothing of significant note, it's pretty average, but just look at it for a second. I know a lot of cars look like they have a face, but this one really has a face. If this thing started talking, I wouldn't be surprised, but I would still be terrified. Is that relevant to the current question? I don't really know. Alright, the Fin Twin is a pretty crappy bike based off of a koi fish. Its stats aren't good, but this is a koi fish in a Japanese game. So if we play our cards right, we could turn this bike into a Gyarados. In Japanese myth, one of the most famous stories is about a group of koi swimming up a river when they come up to a waterfall. While most koi made the decision to turn around, some koi persisted and attempted to climb the waterfall. And despite demons mocking them for even trying, one koi did make it all the way up the waterfall. And upon reaching the top, he was transformed into a dragon. This is the same myth that Magikarp and Gyarados are based on, meaning all we gotta do is get this bike up a waterfall, and we got a Pokemon. And while you may think you can't get a bike up a waterfall, I'd argue 1, you lack determination, and 2, let's take a trip to Cheap Falls. Stupid idiot, it's super easy to get a bike up a waterfall. And now we have a Gyarados. And Pokemon are weapons of mass destruction. We could wash away Koopas by manipulating the water of the ocean. We could summon hurricanes on a singular innocent Shy Guy. Cause the earth itself to quake, leveling the homes of countless innocent mushrooms. And we can erase any evidence a Yoshi ever existed with a single Hyper Beam, warranting adding 30 points to the Fin Twin score, making it the best murder weapon in the Mushroom Kingdom. There is one problem, though. A Gyarados doesn't have brake lights. There you go. An exact and perfect analysis of every single Mario Kart World Kart's ability to kill people. Toads. And hey, if you enjoyed your time here with me, why not leave a like?
And now that all of the questions you could possibly have on this topic have been answered, I'll be headed off now. But as always, remember to drain your bloodstream. Drain it out! The microplastics are inside of you. They're deep in there. You'll never get them out without draining.